Hi, I'm Durham County District Attorney Satana Deberry, and welcome to In Session. In Session is an occasional series that we're doing here at the Durham County DA's office, where we talk about policy and public safety in our community. And I'm really excited today to be joined by somebody who knows that very well. I'm joined by Lieutenant Quincey Tait, a public information officer in the Durham Police Department. Lieutenant Tait has been an investigator before this in the Durham Police Department, and so very much knows very well about the processing of criminal cases, and we are excited to have her here with us today. Welcome, Lieutenant Tait.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get started, you were just recently promoted to lieutenant. And so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And before you were promoted, you led the homicide investigation team.
Yes.
And that's how you and I have become familiar with each other. And so can you tell us a little bit about your role as an investigator at DPD?
So as a homicide investigator, I investigated obviously homicides, but we also investigate suspicious death investigations, suicides, or death investigations where a doctor will not sign off on the death certificate. And so a lot of times, homicide specifically, we would get a phone call that someone was killed. We would have to go out, obviously assess the scene, see whether or not if it's indoor or outdoor, which actually makes a huge difference. If it's in a car versus if it's in a residence, which makes a difference as well, or if the person was killed and found on the street. So we would have to assess the scene, canvass for witnesses in the neighborhood if the person was found in the neighborhood. We would have to process the evidence, see if there's any evidence on the scene that's of that should be collected. A lot of times we don't know what always has to be collected initially because we're just starting on the scene. Talking to the family, friends, delivering the death notification, which I would say for me was the hardest thing to do. No mother or father wants to hear that their loved one has been killed by gun violence or killed in general, period. I don't think any parent brings a child into the world thinking that they will be walking behind them. So I would definitely say the death notification was a lot harder, at least for me. But we would also do search warrants on cars, cell phones, social media. It's a lot that we were responsible for as an investigator and trying to at least bring some type of closure to the family, talking to the family a lot to tell them about the process and where we are with the investigation.
Yeah, that's a big job.
Yes.
And I know for us here in the DA's office, homicides are the most serious thing that we do. And we know for you at DPD also, those are the most serious cases. None of us want to do those cases, right?
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about what is a misconception about the work that you did as a homicide investigator?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, we're all law enforcement officers. We all signed up to do this job, and we all enjoy what we do. However, I think a lot of people don't think that we're humans as well, if that makes sense. And so it's just sometimes I think people have the attitude, well, that's what they signed up for, that's what they're getting paid for. But if you just take a step back and think, okay, they are humans as well, and no one in their lifetime should see some of the things that we see and endure on a daily basis. I think that if people just realize, like, we deal with our own trauma when it comes to seeing some of what we see and what we have to deal with. Just remember, we are humans. As it relates to the investigative part, we all enjoy TV, but I think a lot of misconceptions come from TV. While the first 48 hours are they are very important, every step in that process of a homicide investigation is just as important. The difference is we're still dealing with the shock of the family members getting that notification that their loved one was killed. But the reality is all homicides cannot be and will not be solved within those first 48 hours. So just being patient with the process, being patient with the investigator, being just, and I know it's hard because obviously the families are dealing with the loss, and closure for them sometimes would be making sure that suspect has been arrested and is behind bars. Somebody's paying for that. But if we rush, as the police department, if we rush the investigation, then now the district attorney's office will have to figure out a way, if we messed up on something because we're trying to appease the family, y'all will have to try to figure out a way how we can move this case forward. And we're not in the practice of rushing things.
And I appreciate you saying that. I certainly appreciate you talking about the human side of this, because none of us are robots, and we see autopsy pictures. You all are sometimes there when the autopsy is conducted. So we are often, there's trauma involved for us in this work as well. And most people, thank goodness, will never have to experience a death notification or have to walk through this process with the DA's office. But we're also very much aware that when people see us, it is often, for you, the worst day of their lives when they see you.
Yes.
And when they see us in our office, it is often a continuous reminder of the worst days of their lives. So we also are out there trying to be compassionate about that as well. We're all reliving this trauma every time we deal with it.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And so having said that, what are some of the real challenges that you face after you've gone through your steps of, there's been somebody's reported that somebody's dead? What are the real challenges for you as an investigator after that?
A lot of times the biggest challenge is if the victim is still on the scene and we notify the family and the family starts showing up trying to get crossed into the crime scene tape, which is understandable because they still do not want to believe what has occurred or what we have told them. That is very challenging. The getting information from the community or witnesses is probably one of the biggest challenges. We understand that people may not want to tell us what they saw, what they know, because of fear of retaliation, but there are other ways that they can communicate or provide information to investigators. So I would really say information from the community. We were not out there as investigators when this young person or when this victim was killed, so we can't make anything up as far as what we saw or anything. We really rely heavily on the community witnesses to come forward and let us know what happened. Even friends of the victim, family members that know anybody that knows anybody who would want to cause harm to the victim, could even come and talk to us. Even just showing us, hey, this is what this is what this person said about the victim, or this just some of the rumors. There's what are the streets saying about the victim and what happened could sometimes point us in the right direction, or at least corroborate information that we've already received.
Yeah, and it's you spoke a little bit about television, and people see a lot of DNA on TV. They see
Mm.
video recordings. Do we actually have that stuff in real life?
We do. We have video surveillance. That's one of the things we try to look for while we're on the scene and after the scene. Once the police leave, days after, we have video surveillance. We have DNA, but the DNA, or we collect DNA and we send it off to the state lab, but it does not come back within 48 hours. I think it does take a little. It's a process. And before, a lot of times before we send things to the state lab for comparison, anything, we have our evidence review with the lead crime scene investigator. So we try to figure out what needs to be sent to the lab first. But of course, we're not getting the results back within those 2 days or 3 days or whatever the TV sitcoms are now saying. It does take some time.
And for all of us, like you said, the best evidence sometimes are the actual human people who know things that we don't know.
Right.
And so, speaking of things that we don't know and things that we do know, we our office has been working really closely with DPD over
Mhm.
these last few years with the homicide investigators. Even before someone is arrested, we have been working through these cases so we have the best cases, right? Um,
Right.
so, talk a little bit about how we have been working together before arrest, and then how we work together when you actually have identified a suspect and there may be an arrest about to occur.
Yeah, so I think it's great that we have the relationship that we have, because a lot of times we have our quarterly meetings, which is an opportunity for the whole homicide unit and your homicide team to discuss upcoming cases, new cases, and then cases that are going to trial. And in those meetings, in the quarterly meetings, a lot of times that's when we're finding out what's coming up, what trials are coming up, what you all may need in advance, to continue on with the prosecution. And you all ask us questions sometimes, and we're able to answer them in those settings. But on like the new cases, like if I was this November, so something that happened in October, we always call you all and say, hey, we think we have a good case. We're sure we have a good case, but we want to talk to you all about it because we're looking at it from one lens, and the district attorneys as attorneys, y'all looking at it from a totally different lens, which is great because we bring that together, we collaborate, and sometimes y'all have said, we get one or two more things done before we decide to actually go to grand jury, put this in front of grand jury, or obtain a warrant for murder. So it works because we're working together before we actually charge somebody. And I think that that's a step in the right direction. Obviously, we've been doing this for a couple of years, but I think it's been very beneficial because even sometimes, well, while we're thinking about charging, or before we even go to y'all, we know some of the questions that you all will ask us now. And so we're like, okay, wait a minute, could this be viewed as self-defense? And we have to start answering those questions now before we even get to you all, because we know that will be one of the questions, depending on the homicide investigation. So it's been a good road to have this partnership with you all.
Yeah, it's been great for us too because this communication is significant. We not only do you now know what we need to know, we are learning your processes
Mhm.
and how you investigate a case. And we are able, as we are preparing the case, to really think about what you all might have been thinking about in the moment as you were investigating the case, which
Mm-hmm.
is really important because if someone is arrested and we do go to trial, we want to be able to bring the jury to that moment
Mm-hmm.
and have them understand what happened. Um, and often, just to go back to television, these cases don't happen quickly.
No, ma'am.
When they are very complicated, like you said, we have video, we sometimes have social media or cell phones, or it can take years for these cases to get to court.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's important that we really understand each other as we're working, because we will be working for a long time on this, correct?
Right. Right.
And I think families often don't understand that. And one of the ways that we have tried to help families understand that, and you talk about it's November, we are coming up into Homicide Victims Family Month,
Mm-hmm.
where we really think about it's the holidays, and this is when people really miss people.
Yes.
Our office has been doing quarterly family meetings um, with our families, and it has been great because you all have now been joining us for
Mm-hmm.
that. And we talk a little. We are trying to keep in touch, better touch with them over the years. And can you talk about what that has meant for your investigators? It's been very helpful for us, but what has it meant for you all?
It's meant a lot. So I think our first one was January. Was that the first March, maybe March of last year? Um, and I think it was good to for the investigators to see the other side of the families. Oftentimes, we only hear from we will talk to the family about, hey, this is the update, or we're here from them. But to have so many families there to express their some gratitude, some concern, was they were able to the investigators were actually able to see the families off of the crime scene, and to also see, like, even those that have closed cases, arrests were made, that they are still hurting, that their loved one is still no longer here. We could have done everything right. It does not matter that their loved one is still not here. And I think it's important for them to see that, because you still have to do your job to the best of your ability, but you still have to understand that when I think when a parent loses their child, there's nothing, no arrest, no amount of years in jail that's going to bring that level of closure or comfort. It's a level of closure. It's a level, obviously, of comfort, but it's never going. Their lives will forever be changed because someone decided that they were going to take that person's life on that day. And I think it's been very real and eye-opening experience. Of course, they know, obviously, that the families are sad, and it's difficult for them, but to hear it in that particular setting, not on the scene, or not, when it's their birthdays or the holidays, to hear it in that setting, um, I think makes a difference.
Yeah, and just to bring it even a little bit closer to home and personally, um, as Black women, most of the people who are coming to our homicide roundtables are women of color, uh,
Hmm.
Black mothers especially.
Hmm.
And I know for me, that has been particularly impactful. I'm a little bit older than you, and so um, a lot of the mothers are actually, we're actually the same age. I have children who are the age their children might have been, and
Hmm.
so for me, it's been particularly impactful to sit with them in that space. How has that been for you?
It's hard. Um, it's I go back to what I was saying about delivering the death notification. I never get that sound, that mother's wail or scream. It's out of my head. It's sad. It's very sad. It's disheartening. It is. I can't imagine what they're going through. Obviously, I do not have children, but I can't imagine that notification being delivered to my mother, or my father, and how it would completely uproot their lives. It's hard to see that. And it's even more difficult even when, we've made an arrest and you all have the prosecute, everything is done, sentencing is over. They are still hurt. It's hurtful.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of families, especially when there's arrest been made, and when a case has been disposed of, and 70% of the cases where you all have made an arrest and we've prosecuted them result in a conviction for murder or manslaughter. Um, so these cases do get disposed of, but at the end of the day, their child is still gone.
Right. I don't know when the grieving period starts. Obviously, it's different for every family member. It's different for everybody involved. But I think there's some level of there's some level of okay, we got the death notification delivered. Okay, the arrest was made. Okay, now it's going to trial. Okay, now the trial is here. Now the sentencing. I think there's always somewhere in between all of that, there's a level of they're able to keep going because they have something to focus on, because it's not over, and then maybe the real grieving starts. I don't know.
Yeah, and that can be years later.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it's often a case file, and we move on to the next case file. But for them, it's a real hole in their lives.
Yes. Yes.
Well, we are getting towards the end of our time together, and so
Okay.
I just want to shift a little bit to what motivates you to keep going. We've been talking about some heavy stuff
Yeah.
for the last half hour. So, what motivates you to keep doing your work?
I would say it's a calling. I would dare say everyone cannot be a homicide investigator, or even a police officer. It takes a level of integrity, responsibility. You have to want to do this, for a living. But the silent thank yous, the silent applause that we get from the community, from our family, even from just police officers saying, "Hey, y'all are doing a good job. Hey, we love you." I have a very supportive family, um, extremely supportive family. My church family is very supportive. My The police department, they really are very supportive. Obviously, you all are supportive. That has been able to keep me going.
And I appreciate the relationship we've been able to build with you all.
Hmm.
Your leadership was important over these last couple years as we've been trying to build that. And so, as you move on in your career, we certainly want to see you be as successful as you can be.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have one final question for you. We ask everybody who comes on In Session this. So, if your life was a movie or a TV show, what would your theme song be?
So I had to really think about this question. Um, and a lot of because I have a lot of favorite movies, obviously favorite TV sitcoms, but I would absolutely have to say the Jeffersons theme song. Um,
You are probably, you know, the Jeffersons.
No, not as no, no, I don't. No, I don't. I would watch it every now and then with my parents, but I love the theme song. I love the theme song. And I think it's super appropriate for my career, but also my personal life as well.
Well, I am going to encourage folks because that was on when I was a child. So I know that was a long time ago. And so I'd encourage y'all to go out to YouTube and watch the intro to the Jeffersons and think of Lieutenant Quincy Tait, Durham PD Public Information Officer, as you are doing that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Tait. It's been great to have you on today. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank you to all of you all out there for joining us for this episode of In Session. If we don't see you before the holidays, have a great winter holiday, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thank you for having me.